Coming up, we're back in the inbox.
You're listening to Double Time, your daily accessible technology show. Now, here's your hosts, Stephen Scott and Shaun Priest.
Hey, Shaun Priest, happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday to you, sir. How are you?
Stop singing along with the music.
Oh, it's catchy, you know. I never realised before. That's a very good tune.
It's funny. I was watching some of the episodes back when I was lying in my hospital bed.
Don't go on about it.
Actually laughing along. It was kind of, I don't know, slightly depressing and unnerving all at the same time. Why am I finding what I'm saying funny and what you were saying funny? I always find you funny. I get in trouble for finding you funny.
Yes, yeah, even when I'm not trying to be. Yes. How are you feeling anyway?
I'm still a bit tired. I'm not going to lie. It's taken out of me a little bit, this trip to the old hospital. Do you know the weirdest thing though, right? Wasn't the trip itself. In the hospital experience is never the best, and you know nobody wants to go to a hospital. It's one of the places in life nobody really wants to be, but you know if you have to be there, you have to be there. And it's funny. There's a thing that happens in a hospital, right? First, when you're in, if someone says to you, "Hey, you're going to be," and the doctor did, they said, "Look, you're going to be in a couple of days until we get you checked out, until we do all the tests." And in that moment, I was kind of like, you know what, fine, whatever, okay, fine. But once you start to feel just the tiniest bit better.
Yes,
you just want out of there. It's like, oh, what, another hour I need to spend in this place? And when I was finally told I had to leave, I had to wait for medication.
Oh, that takes so long.
What is that about? It just taken. I was like 6 hours just to get the medication. I was like, could you just send me away with a prescription and I will get it from the pharmacy on the way home? No, can't do that. You've got to take it with you.
Just a wild stab in the dark here, Stephen. But, you know, it's a hospital full of sick people that all need medication.
Well, that's not good enough.
Take some time. I mean, it's not all about the Scotster.
Why not?
I'm guessing that's the reason. Unbelievable.
God, it'd been quicker if I'd gone private. Anyway, but here's the thing, right? I have to tell you, I know that we talk a lot about attitudes and people's reactions to us, and it's funny in medical environments, and I know that we've had this conversation before. A lot of people, especially people who work in eye departments, always seem to come off as the people who know the least about eyesight and blindness and all the rest, right? I mean, you've had this.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you show me to a seat, please? Yeah, it's just over here. And I'm pointing. I mean, come on. You just expect more from someone working in a department like that. But, yeah.
The thing that gets me was that there were two interactions I had, and both of them were the furthest opposite ends of understanding and logic that you could ever imagine, right? So when I arrived in the ward, it was quite late at night, and I said, traveling to the ward, I said to the nurse, would it be possible to have a side room? Because oftentimes if you can get a room on your own, it's better, right? Because you've got your own facilities.
La-di-da.
Yeah, absolutely.
Special treatment for Stephen. Private room.
Because I want to be able to find my bathroom and I want to know where it is, and I don't want to end up in a store closet or something else, because it has happened.
Getting the wrong bed with someone.
Getting the wrong bed. Well, that's the other thing, right? Finding your way back. I didn't even think of that at the time, but that's a good point. But anyway, they said, no, we don't have that, and we only give that to the most infectious people. So I thought, well, okay, I'm one up on them, because I'm not an infected human, clearly. So that's good. But so they take me to this bed, and the bed they put me in is right next to the bathroom. So I thought, well, actually, that's not too bad, right? So
that works out well. Yeah.
I said to the nurse, I said, look, you're going to have to show me around. Oh, no problem at all. So we do the whole, well, how much sight have you got? And I tried to explain. And it's funny, again, nowadays I just say I'm blind. I don't even say I'm totally blind. I don't say anything. I just say I'm blind. And whatever they choose to take from that is entirely up to them. I was also, I was ill, right? So I wasn't particularly into having a full advocacy discussion, right? I just wanted to get to my bed. But I also wanted to know that if I needed the bathroom, where I could go. Now, I've got a little question for you coming up on this, right? One of those little would you or wouldn't you situations. So I'll come to that in a minute regarding the bed. But anyway, so I get sort of a lay of the land, get a sense of where everything is. The bathroom is absolutely massive because there's a shower in there as well.
Of course.
There's a funny story in that as well, actually. And so I'm feeling a bit better today, so I can tell you all these stories. So I get into bed and I get myself, sorted out, and I fix all my stuff. And generally everything was fine. No hassles at all. I get into bed. Here's the question, though. The nurse asks me the question, do you want the bars up on each side of the bed so you don't roll out the bed?
Absolutely not. No.
Now, I said yes.
Oh, and then you were trapped.
Well, I didn't think about it. That's the problem. I didn't really think beyond the moment, right? So I kind of went, oh, well, actually, that's a good idea, because not really that I was more concerned. I was also, if I'm honest, I was attached to various machines at the time. So moving was very difficult. And so I thought, well, actually, this is quite useful because I can use these to move around. And so but of course, like you say, you then think I need to go to the bathroom. How does
You've
this
got to try
work?
and ring for assistance.
Actually, in fairness, I couldn't have gone myself anyway because of the machines I was connected to. So I suppose it wouldn't have worked. Anyway, got it all sorted out and that was fine. So let's zoom forward to the end, the day I'm leaving. And I have the nurse come up to me and she says, look, what we're going to do is we normally take you to the discharge lounge. I thought, oh, wow, this is a posh hotel.
VIP.
Hotel? I keep saying hotel. Why do I keep doing that? Hospital. This is a posh hospital. I seem to have those two words absolutely connected. And it's not because I pay for private. I guarantee you on that. I don't. But anyway.
No, it's the thing. They get you out of that bed as quick as possible
Basically,
while you're
yes.
waiting for transport, usually. They have
So they say, we'll move you into this lounge, which is basically just a room full of chairs. And you go and sit in there and you wait for taxi or ambulance, whatever it is that's taking you back. In my case, it was a taxi. But they said, look, what we're going to do is, because you're blind, we're going to keep you here in your bed. That's nice, isn't it? That's nice.
That's nice.
I felt a little cozy. I didn't want to leave. I wanted like a teddy bear. I wanted to hug it, and I wanted to stay there forever. No, I didn't. I wanted out. But anyway, so I sat in the chair, which I always feels a very lonely thing when you sit in the chair next to the bed. I don't know. I feel I cut a lonely figure in that environment. I hear that phrase a lot in audio description. I quite like.
He cuts a lonely figure.
He cuts a lonely figure.
Sat next to an empty hospital bed. Oh, jeez.
Grim.
Yeah, quickly, move on.
Anyway, so I'm sitting there, and the nurse comes over and she says, "Now, does your home have stairs?"
What?
And I'm like, "Yes." And she said, "Do you manage to go up and down the stairs in your house?" I said, well, it's quite hard to move around my house otherwise. And she said, well, it's just to check that you're going to be okay. So at that moment, I kind of had to stop that conversation by asking, I said, look, I've got to ask you this. Lovely nurse lady, you're a wonderful person. I have to ask you this question. What would happen right now if I said to you, no, I actually can't use those stairs anymore? What are you going to do about it? Mm-hmm. Are you going to buy me a bungalow? Are you going to come home and saw my home in half?
No, they'd whip you into some sort of home, supported living.
Here's the other question, by the way. Mm-hmm. Who's at home with you? You know where I'm going with this. Mm-hmm. Who's at home with you? I said, my wife.
Yes.
Is she blind? Yes.
Oh, the horror.
There was a out of that one. And I have to say, there is a moment where you think to yourself, I need to be careful what I'm saying here. Because I feel I'm going to turn up at my house and there's going to be, a gigantic van parked outside with social workers and, people who want to ask various questions.
Big butterfly nets.
Is it possible for you to live alone? Mm-hmm. It kind of terrifies you a little bit, just for a moment, right? Nothing's happened and nothing will, I would hope. But it's funny, right? All of a sudden you start to kind of get really nervous about mentioning what your situation's like.
Yeah, but it's because of that attitude, right? What on earth has stairs got to do with being blind? And let me just clarify this. Was that the reason she asked about the stairs? Because of blindness or no other reason, right?
Well, there was no... I asked her, I said, has the doctor said something about me climbing stairs? She said, no, not at all. So the only reason she's asked is because I'm blind. But again, it's like, well, what are you going to do about it? And how have I lived my whole life without you being... I've had taxi drivers like this as well. They try and... So taxi driver said to the other day, a couple of weeks ago, we were going somewhere, and the taxi driver says, okay, do you want me to help you to get into this? I was dropping something off at a building, and I knew the building fairly well, enough to find my way in, put it that way. Mm-hmm. And so I get out the taxi, and the guy was absolutely adamant that he was going to come with me. I said, no, you're fine. You're absolutely all right. And my wife was in the car, and he turned to her and he said, yeah, it just amazes me how, some people like that just want to just do it all by themselves.
Like that? Okay.
Like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Fat people? I mean, what are you talking about here? Are we talking the blindness here? What are we talking about?
Well, look, sadly, we've talked about this many times, right? The attitude is something that lots of people face every day. I do think it's getting less and less, or maybe people are just less prone to just spurt out what they're thinking off the top of their head. But it still surprises me.
I don't know.
When you hear it. And I've got to say, as I get older, I've realized that people in certain positions, I used to always assume, well, they're a nurse, or they're a doctor, or they're this, or they're that, and they will know better. That's absolutely not the case. No. It doesn't matter what position someone has or whatever. They can still say really inappropriate things and have these views which are just outdated and a lack of experience of dealing with someone who's blind or visually impaired. I still remember, when we was having our first child, who's there to help you? All those questions. You two can't do it. You're both blind. It's
exactly.
We had, I would have classed low vision at that point. But I mean, at that point as well, when you're, taking your first child home, you're worried enough as it is, and then you start to question yourself. Well, can we do it? But ignorance is everywhere.
Well, you're right. The self-confidence part is a big area in this, because you do end up asking yourself the question. But then there are people who, and there are horrific stories of people who have been told, well, I'm sorry, we're going to take your child off you.
Yeah.
Because, you couldn't possibly look after a child. Now, when you tell this to someone, say you've got friends who are sighted, right? And you tell them these stories, they almost don't believe you. It's like, really? That can't happen. That just doesn't happen. But it does. It really does happen. And it happens purely because of sheer ignorance. That's all it is.
I thought you were going to say stupid people then.
Well, yeah, it is. But, it's ignorance, but it's almost like professional ignorance, if that makes sense. It's like it's baked into the mindset, because, if it was just stupidity, then someone else on the team would be like, well, we can't take a child off someone because they're blind. That would be the obvious. But instead, what you're going to have is a bunch of people probably also sitting going, yeah, I mean, couldn't possibly have a child if you're blind. There are people, you and I know people who've, had faced horrendous abuse because they walk down the street with their children and people shout at them and say, how dare you be a parent? Those kids are only going to be carers to you. Mm-hmm. It's never something that had any impact on me in wanting children. That was never a thing for me. I would never ever allow myself to be controlled in that way by other people's thoughts. I just don't think you could be. I don't think you should be. I understand.
You shouldn't be,
and most people shouldn't
say it doesn't have an effect on you.
But of course it does. Of course it does. And that's something that you, I guess, learn to live with as a blind parent, right? I mean, it's just awful. I'm not in that position in some ways, thank goodness. Although, that's a matter of opinion. But anyway, it was just such an interesting question. Do you have stairs? And I thought, wow, what the hell does that mean?
I've got to say, we got. I was speaking to someone on WhatsApp last night, and they're sending in an email with something that someone said to them, which is quite frank. I was laughing so much. I can't wait. And that's from Jen. Hello, Jen C. How you doing? But it doesn't stop. It just doesn't stop. It's never ending, this ignorance, right?
No, I know. Tell me about it.
You got to laugh at it or you cry.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, let's get some emails on. Let's
email.
Let's turn to email.
We get email. We get your email every day.
Ding dong.
Here's your mail today.
Beep, beep, beep.
We also get WhatsApps, we get messages, we get call voicemails, we get social media messages.
Does that need updating, that jingle?
I think it does, but there's no way we're going to be able to do that.
Okay. Yeah, it can't happen.
It's just
impossible.
So it's email. The day will come where they'll switch email off, and we'll still be playing that jingle. But there's no more email. That's it. It's gone. It's all air message or whatever.
We can't change it. We're blind.
Exactly. We can do nothing. We are blind. Goodness me. All right, let's get a couple of messages. Carrie's up first. Carrie on accessibility. Carrie Morales. Yes, she's got something she wants to say, I think, to me.
Uh-oh.
Hey, everyone. So this is Carrie on accessibility, and I would like to set the record straight that when I talked about the Samsung Galaxy Watch 7, I was comparing it to the Pixel Watch, and honestly, in my opinion, anything is pretty much better than the Pixel Watch. But that was the context of my post. I did not say the Watch 7 was absolutely amazing or perfect, because later on during the post, I say it is not perfect. Far from it. I'm really happy, and I'm sure other Android users are as well, to hear a little less Apple discussion on the show. A little more Android. That makes us happy, or makes me happy at least. About angle gestures, they are great, Stephen. Okay, once you get the hang of them, they are great. They're amazing. You can do certain things one-handed. No, don't get rid of them. Google, if you're listening to Double Tap, please don't listen to Stephen. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Don't get rid of angle gestures. People can use the multi-finger gestures. They're great. They're awesome. I love them too. But angle gestures, back and forth gestures, we still need them. We still want them.
Yes.
Now let's just see how long Stephen can keep these Android devices out of his drawer. By the way, my son and I have been listening to the show nearly every lunch, and my son just absolutely loves the show. He's 8, and he says Shaun and Stephen is the correct order, and he just adores you, Shaun. Anyway, that's it for me for now. Great show as always. I'll catch you soon.
Do you know what's annoying? Do you know what's annoying about that? What's kind of upsetting about that message? Is I was really looking forward to Carrie coming back on. Oh well, never mind.
Hey! She picked you up. I mean, those terrible things
No. I did not say those terrible things. I did not. I can't remember what I said, but I was ill. I was in a fog. I know nothing about what I speak. I'm blind. Anything else?
So the Samsung Watch, is it 7? Is that the one?
I think,
Samsung
Well, I've got the Ultra here, which... did I tell you I got one of those? Did I tell you that?
Yeah, well, I guessed you'd have one by now. And?
I did hear what Carrie was talking about, but I know you didn't say it was the best ever, but it definitely is improved, and a huge improvement over the Pixel in some areas. You're absolutely right. And we're going to get Carrie on to talk more about it and kind of get into the nuances of it, because the key difference clearly is the hardware inside finally is catching up a little bit. I mean, it's taken how many generations to get to this point? Doesn't feel that we should have had to wait this long. The Pixel Watch, to me, is still just a no-no. But in particular, because of the customization options in it, there's very little choice of voice, control, and the voices. I won't even do the impression because I can't be bothered. But you know that it's horrible.
You did it. Okay, well done.
And then the Samsung voice, so it's better. It's still those Google TTS voices that I don't really love, but it's better than
just agreeing with
that
everything
thing that was before.
Carrie just said.
Exactly. But as for the angle gestures, Carrie, I think you're aiming your ire at the wrong person here.
No, I think she's right. I'm sure you said when we were talking about them, we keep forgetting which way to get to, recent apps. I'm sure you said, just get rid of them. I'm with Carrie. Did I
throw that away? Maybe I threw that in there, but I did not. Yeah. I think you said it. But here's the thing. I love the angle gestures. I want them to stay.
No, you don't.
I do.
You keep forgetting them. You can't remember what does what.
Do I need to go back to the hospital here? I feel like I'm missing things.
Well, thank you very much, Carrie. And hello, young Morales there. You didn't give us his name, but hello. Thanks for listening.
Enjoy your lunch. I hope you eat all your greens.
Oh, don't. Have some ice cream. Have a candy bar. They're good
That's why, you see, Uncle Shaun here, right? That's the problem. Uncle Shaun, and he's going to listen to that, right?
Well, I'm just saying.
And that's why he likes you more than me. Because I say eat your greens and you say eat ice cream. So, of course, he's going to love you more than me.
Thank you, Carrie.
And remember, guys, it is Double Tap with Stephen and Shaun, just to be clear.
That's just wrong. In many ways.
I mean, look, I'm happy to swap it. So you'll be okay running the whole the desk and the buttons and the...
Yes, I will. Let's do an episode where I run the buttons.
Next, we should do this.
Right.
I'll do the show from the shed, and you come up here and do this.
All right, I will. Easy. Pressing buttons. How hard can it be?
And you never heard from Double Tap again.
Ah, dear.
Carrie, always lovely to hear from you. We'll get you on the show soon. Let's go to JR, who's got some comments.
Hi, my name is JR. I'm in New Jersey, Toms River. I do follow you on YouTube. I have a blind shell phone, and I have put a down payment on the Echo Vision glasses. I could not use the Meta Ray-Bans because they are not compatible with my Blind Shell 3. However, the Echo Vision is designed specifically for blind people. That's why I am interested in them, and I'd like to see if you can do a demo on them. One of the reasons for my interest in the Echo Vision, it's more affordable than the Envision. I did have a trial with the Orcam. It was a little pricey, but that's irrelevant when you want to make your life a little more manageable with your vision loss. However, it didn't work for me. And Envision is a product that's a little pricey, and it seems a little more convoluted despite the Ally and the accessibility that it has now. But I feel that the Echo Vision may be more suitable and may be more reachable as far as finances and affordability. I'm also interested in your Glidance product and am following the development of it and hope to purchase it in the near future. I am a retiree from Verizon Communications, and I think you guys are wonderful. I follow you as much as I can. Have a good day and enjoy your stay in California. Welcome to the United States.
Oh, bye. Goodness, that's dated it. Okay, well, thank you for that, JR. Now we know when you sent the email. Thank you for that. Really appreciate it. Sorry it's taken us so long to get around to playing in your message there. And lovely to hear from you. I love hearing all these new voices, these names, and I love that you call in because I love to hear your voices from where you are in the world. It gives us a rich tapestry of life listening to this show. Tom's River.
Nice. Get out Tom's River.
New Jersey. I like the Sopranos, so I go for a coffee.
Right, stop that right now.
Hey, I'm walking here.
I've got alarm bells ringing. I'm just not listening to you. I've got alarm bells ringing here, though, Stephen Scott.
Oh.
A blind shell smartphone with the Echo Visions. Do we know if the Echo Visions are going to support a blind shell classic phone?
So the short answer is I have no idea. I would recommend, JR, you get in touch with the company first to double check this. Now, you may have done, hence why you've made the decision to buy them. Yeah. But I would definitely double check that. I wouldn't take that as an assumption because I know that it's a product for blind people. It doesn't guarantee that the blind shell and the blind or the Echo Vision glasses will go together. So, yeah, I would contact a Giga and double check that. If it, no, I don't know. It may well be because it may have. If it has got an Android app and it can run on the Blind Shell Classic, then you're fine. But there's no guarantee on that, so you might want to just double check.
Yes, there will definitely be an Android version of whatever companion app is for Echo Vision, as there is for the Meta Ray-Ban, iOS and Android. But as you find out yourself, JR, Blind Shell Classic, it's almost a different ecosystem, or at least they need to tinker, let's put it that way, with the apps themselves to get it to run as you would like on the Blind Shell. So, and
yes, I know you can get the third-party applications on there. Not all those third-party applications will work. There are certain ones I tried, like my banking app, for example, that just it would download the app, but then it would immediately say it was incompatible and it would remove the app. Which is actually quite a cool thing, rather than just leaving orphan files all over the place. It was kind of cool. It tidies up after itself. But
it's a perfectly valid point, though, right? I mean, Echo Vision do make a point of saying this is for blind users. So I totally understand the assumption there, but I would just double check.
Yeah, but these companies aren't connected. So you can't really put it on them. It's just because they've got blind in the title doesn't mean that it's going to guaranteed work, like that's somehow the interlinking. It's like blind becomes a USB-C cable, If it's got blind written on it, it means it will connect with something else that's blind. It doesn't work like that.
Okay, all right, we'll find out.
Yeah.
Sorry, was I miss?
You talked about Glidance, you talked about some other products, you tried Orcam, didn't work out for you. That's the thing. At least if you're getting a chance to try these things out, that's really important because you will find products that you might think, just as you said there, JR, you might come across a product and all you hear about is, it's so expensive, But then you get hold of it and you think, wow. I mean, the Mantis Q40 is incredibly expensive and I love it. I put the money on it because I really like it. It's helped me a lot with my Braille reading. So, it's like if it works for you, it's worth the money. But, I think for a lot of us, if you're making a decision to buy something like that, it really needs to be a well-informed decision, because you're not going to buy something else. You can't just buy the Orcam and then say, oh, well, that didn't work, I'll buy the Envision glasses. Oh, that didn't work, I'll buy the... You can't, you have to pick something based on, evidence. So if you get a chance to try it, that's a good thing.
And you can always try this stuff. Get in touch with the distributor or the company, whatever's in your neck of the woods, and say, I want to try this out. Come round, book a demo, see if it works for you. Don't forget, you can always send this stuff back if it doesn't work for you in a certain time period, depending on where you are again in the country, in the world. But yeah, you're not stuck with this stuff. And it's so expensive that it just seems so wrong to say, oh, it doesn't work for me, but I'm stuck with it now. That is not the case.
Again, we maybe talk from a little point of privilege there. If you think about Africa, or you think about India, and we have many listeners in those parts of the world, I think you'll be sitting there listening to me and Shaun saying, yeah, that's all right for you guys. I'm not going to get access to any of this stuff to try it out. We just have to, essentially get hold of what we can get hold of. So yeah, I want to mention that. But no, it's interesting to hear from you. Glidance, yeah, we're all excited about Glidance. I really hope this product lives up to the hope here. I know. Not the hype. Not the hype. I think that's unfair, because I think the hype has kind of come from the community itself.
That's
rather
exactly
than the company. Right. So I think the hope is what we're all kind of... To me, it's the hope rather than the hype. Does that make sense?
Hope, not hype. Okay, we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Double tap motto.
All these demos have gone on in a controlled environment. As Stuart said just the other day, this is on an exhibition floor. It's totally different than outside of my house. So, there's still, it's got something to prove still.
Okay, look, if you want to get involved with the show, here's how.
Get in touch with Double Tap. Email feedback at doubletaponair.com. Leave us a voicemail at 1-877-803-4567. And now you can send an audio or video message to us on WhatsApp. That number is 1-613-481-0144.
Okay, let's go to John Dyer's message on Windows versus ARM, or Windows ARM versus, I guess, everything else.
Hi guys, this is John again. I'm sending you this voice message because you asked to hear from somebody using a Windows laptop running on ARM. And I've actually been using one for about 6 months now. I got the new Surface Laptop 7 when it was launched. And I've been pretty impressed with it. Now, I'm not a power user. I don't use my PC much. I use it for basically Google Meet, Reaper, and Audacity. But I'll tell you what my issue is with it. And it's not the emulation itself. It's what programs can run on it. Because when I run Reaper or Audacity and I'm rendering a file, it's actually pretty fast. And it's using emulation. And, it's faster than I'm coming from another Surface laptop that's 2 generations old. So it is faster than that. I don't know if it wasn't being emulated, how much more faster it would be. But I haven't had performance issues. But what I have come across, and this is a little disappointing, because Microsoft, I don't know if they flat out lied to me or just let me think something that was incorrect. But I was under the impression that if there was not an ARM version of an app, it would just emulate the x64 version of the app. And that's not the case, because I've come across a couple of situations, one being when I tried to install QuickShare, which is basically the Android equivalent of AirDrop. So if you install QuickShare on your PC, then you can send and receive files between your PC and your Android phone. And I downloaded the x64 version and it would not install. It said, this is not compatible with your computer. And I couldn't. Now, they have released an ARM version since then, but at the time I couldn't use it because not everything is emulatable, if that's a word. And I was under the impression that it was. Another situation where I had that problem was with an extension or plugin for Audacity that I tried to install. It just wouldn't install because it was an ARM PC. Even though Audacity itself, I'm running the x64 version of it and it's being emulated, but the the extension just wouldn't install. So it does work. The performance is good. Now, I'm one of those people that don't even use NVDA or JAWS. Narrator is fine for me. So like I said, I'm not a power user, but I did install NVDA and it does run fine, but I just don't ever get around to using it because narrator just works.
You know, I think you're the first person I've ever heard from who's just using narrator on its own, John. I don't think there's many people, certainly not many I've heard from, who are saying that.
It just works. Yeah, no, narrator is fine. There was many a time when I set up a new PC that I actually forgot what I was using. And especially with the new voice, I've got to say, the Microsoft Cloud voices are beautiful. I just wish they would make them system-wide so I could use them on other screen readers. But aside from that, yeah, very good. That was so interesting. As I've said many times, I've got is it the Surface Pro 7 or 8?
I think you've got the 8, I think.
I've got the 8, yes. The tablet-style laptop, and I love it. It's the best computer.
Oh, he does. He really does.
Ever had. It's amazing. It is so cool. I would love to get a newer model, but the ARM, it's fine. The ARM processor still makes me nervous for exactly those reasons there, John. And I was the same as you. I would expect any x64, even x86 is 32-bit supported. I don't know, but let's say x64. I would expect them to at least try to be emulated. And if it doesn't work very well or it crashes out, then fair enough. But if it says this is not compatible with your computer, that really scares me off because you just don't know. There may be some software that you're using that you rely on totally. And if you can't run it, then that computer is useless to you. So, yeah, it's not great. Look, this is why Apple Silicon really hit out of the park. They really sorted that out. And it's incredibly important, which is a shame, though, because you mentioned the performance being great, and everything else. It's the advantages of an ARM processor, of instant turn on, quick boots, and battery life. But if the software isn't reliable, I just can't go there yet.
It's you know what I'm like, right? I'll happily jump on any bandwagon when it comes along with new tech on it, right? So when I learned about these new ARM processors, I really wanted to dive in. And in the first initial weeks, I had started getting, these reviews through on YouTube, and I'm looking at them, and it's like, this is not a great experience, and this isn't as good as you think it's going to be. And there was a lot of hype about it, but really, it's not really lived up to it. And there's issues with applications not working properly and emulation issues. And it kind of put me off. Now, I have had to, almost stop myself, sort of call my credit card and say, I've stolen my own credit card. Can you cancel it, please? Just so that they'll leave, they'll switch it off for a while so that I don't go and buy one, because I have been really tempted to. But I think what's put me off is because I keep getting these mixed messages on applications. And, I get someone like Greg in Arizona, who I imagine is probably banging his head off a table as he listens to this, saying, what are you talking about? This is brilliant. I know he got the Dell Inspiron, and we're going to get Greg on soon, actually, to talk about that, because he's been having a great time with his and not having many issues at all. He seems to really like it. But then, other people are having issues. We've got to acknowledge that. It's not perfect. And I think if I'm honest, and I know you're going to say, oh, he's an Apple fanboy, so here we go. But, I think what happened is that I think people felt this was Microsoft's Apple moment, right? This was the Apple Silicon moment from Microsoft, and it just wasn't. It hasn't worked in the way that we hoped it might have done in the first instance. That would be my take from all the experiences I've heard about. If I collate them all together, that would be the kind of overall. When Apple came out with Silicon, there was literally no one who wasn't blown away. Even the biggest Apple detractors out there, were kind of like scratching their heads going, I want to hate this, but actually it's kind of impressive. The whole thing, I remember when the M1 came out, it was the Mac Mini first, and they brought out the M1 Mac Mini, and people were turning it on and opening every single app on their computer at once. And it was like every app was open and functional in like 10 seconds or something. And like you try doing this in a PC, and this computer will just, no matter how fast it is, it just will not be able to cope with that. And, people loading up, I remember loading up like apps like GarageBand with like 150 tracks and, 850 plugins. Just keep piling them on, see what happens. It would just never even blink. Now, of course, as the generations have grown and the applications have grown, we're starting to see some chinks in that armor. But even so, Apple did hit it out of the park with silicon, and Microsoft, and I should say Snapdragon, who produced the chips, haven't.
Qualcomm, yeah, there is a difference, and we got to recognize it, that Apple are in charge of the software and the hardware. They've got total control.
Well, you can make that argument so far, but then
finished.
But remember, they make their own hardware as well, right? So they do have their own hardware. So I understand it from outside the bubble. I understand, other manufacturers like Lenovo or Dell or whoever, that might be different. You may have issues there. But when it's your own equipment that's struggling,
Yeah, but Microsoft do not make that processor. But the argument is that they work hand in hand. This isn't the first attempt at Microsoft trying to bring ARM to the market.
Legs.
We've seen it, the Windows... Windows.
I threw you right off there, didn't I? I threw you right off on that one.
We've seen Windows RT before. We've seen all those, and the hardware is beautiful, but the performance just wasn't there. The people didn't accept it. And, going back to the hype and hope thing, the Snapdragon, this latest one, there was a lot of hype, and the demos that they were showing, the previews were showing exactly that, loading so many, projects up and tracks and showcasing AI. And it was really impressive. It just didn't translate when it actually came into people's hands. So, it's a shame. And look, it may be, John says he's not a power user, but the trouble is, Greg's enjoying his experience with it, but we don't all use the same software. So it is still unreliable.
I also think there's an expectation difference for a lot of people as well. I've had friends, and I'm not going to say it's people who are more technical or less technical, because I don't know. I think it depends on who you are and what you consider. It's all down to your own expectation of what the thing can do. Like, I know people who used to get really annoyed, especially JAWS users I knew, who would be really annoyed when you'd open up Outlook and it wasn't instant, like it wasn't there. I'm arrowing up and down and it's not in my message list yet. And I'm like, okay, let the application open. Give it a minute. Just let it settle into itself.
A minute is correct. Yeah, it takes ages.
It does.
Awful.
But again, it's like, okay, but you got to understand that, right? You got to. It's not that there's something wrong.
It's a list of emails. What's it doing?
Well, I don't know. It's got to connect. It's got to talk to a cloud. The cloud's got to send things.
Yes. So's Netflix. So's
the computer's
YouTube.
got to get. It's got to get its packets. Ridiculous. It's got to open them all. When you see me trying to open up an Amazon packet, it takes a while.
All right. Okay. Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. Mary Hart's been in touch.
Hello. Stephen, what I do when I encounter bunk. I've been trying to find something to go into 11 Reader, which is the app that supposedly reads things made by 11 Labs. Not too successful so far, though. What I do when I come across that lovely sound of bunk, first I decide if I really want it that badly, and if so, I go up to the share sheet and select, after swiping through several options underneath the list of apps, select Describe with Be My Eyes. Be My Eyes will take over and start to read the website. I use this a lot to have it describe the colours of my yarn. I'm the one that crochets a lot. When you see a yarn labelled Kitchen Breeze, you have to question, what colour is that? I open it up, go to the share sheet, and Be My AI will describe the colours of the picture of this skein of yarn that's showing on the screen, or take a picture of it, go to the video viewer in the camera app, and use the share sheet in the same way. From Mary Hart.
Yeah, bonk is what we're talking about there. When you're navigating around on your phone and you only get bonk. I hate that.
Yeah,
I think I was talking at the time about using screen recognition for some apps and some of that when they give you nothing at all, which I'm finding not more, but I do find it every so often. And you download an app and you hear about it, maybe you read about an app and you go, oh, that sounds pretty cool. I'm going to go and try that.
Yes.
And it's funny because the other day on my iPad, what have I got? An iPad Air.
Oh, how many have you got? There we go.
Well, it's actually not mine. It's my wife's, but she doesn't use it. So I've reclaimed it. Got it reset up, and I put on it Final Cut Pro, which by the way is a monthly subscription for that. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? I just paid £300 for it. You want more money for it, but okay, right, fine. Typical Apple. So yeah, more money. So £5 a month or £50 a year. I guess that translates into whatever in dollars. And I got that. I got Ferrite Studio to try that out. I have to be honest, there's that moment where you get the app and you open it up in front of you and you start going through it and it's all very accessible and it's all very lovely, but you're just listening to all these buttons going, I've just not got the brain for this today. Okay, we'll come back to it. But it does sound quite interesting because it is a very accessible editing software. But I kind of also get annoyed by that because I'm like, not by Ferrite, but just the fact that I'd have to go to an iPad to do my audio editing. This just doesn't seem right to me. Why?
You don't have to.
No, I don't have to. I could learn how to use Reaper, but look how that's going.
Why do you want to do stuff like video editing and audio editing on the iPad?
Well, I don't, to be honest. I just want to see how accessible it actually is, in particular Final Cut.
That's fair enough.
I don't think I'd ever switch over, unless I found it was incredible.
Could be amazing. We don't know. I haven't used it in years. Last time I looked at Fahrenheit.
Ferrite. Think of ferret, but it's "ite" at the end. Ferrite.
Okay. Last time I looked at Ferritite, it was... it was, as you say, everything was accessible. It just wasn't a great workflow. It was awkward to get through things.
Oh, but how long ago was that?
Years. That was probably the first initial release. So it could be great now. So I'm glad you're taking a look at it anyway.
Yeah, no, I'm intrigued by it just because I know the iPad. I remember the days when the iPhone could barely bring in a couple of tracks. It would promise multi-track support, but the whole thing would always crash whenever you bring in a couple of files. Obviously, the processor now inside the iPad Air's got the M2 processor in there. So, it's more than capable of handling multi-track audio. And, for what we're doing on it. It was interesting because there was a guy who I follow. He is a sighted guy. Not that I put that against him. But he's a sighted guy. He's a YouTuber. And he's called Stephen Robles. He's been on the show before. And he was talking about the editor he uses. And the fact that he mentioned his iPad... He says, I edit audio on my iPad. I edit my podcast on my iPad every day. And I thought, on your iPad? And so he said, yeah, I use Ferrite. I thought, okay, interesting. I'm intrigued.
So you copied and jumped on that bandwagon.
Well,
it'd be interesting.
I do hear it's very accessible.
Okay.
And they have, even in their manual, and this is, again, you kind of want to support people who are doing this.
Yes.
In their manual, they have all section, for VoiceOver. And they make it, on the front page of their website. They talk about the fact they're accessible and works with VoiceOver. I mean, it's funny when something says it works with VoiceOver. It kind of makes me laugh because on one hand you're like, well, that's great, and on the other hand you're like, well, it kind of always should, right? I mean,
yes.
Why shouldn't it work with VoiceOver? But the fact that it does
isn't a feature. Yes.
Well, that says where we're at with accessibility. It's still being highlighted as a plus, which is a bit kind of like, really? Okay, but great for them to be doing it, and I'll support them for them doing it. A bit like the Rogue Amoeba guys, the amount of work
they do an amazing
job,
job,
accessible.
Yeah.
All their apps.
Thank you, Mary. Be My Eyes is so useful all the time. Using the share sheet in on your iPhone and also, Be My Eyes on Windows, I use quite often as well. Is there any sign of the Mac version? That's due out any time now.
Still waiting. Just putting out there. Still waiting.
All right.
I'll be patient.
Okay, you got no choice. Good.
Apparently.
Well done.
Okay. Let's move on to Molly.
Hello again. So I'm coming on with the Braille debate episode, and I just want to say that I totally agree with you, Stephen.
Right.
Everything you said about Braille. I think it's a dying art, and I'm sorry, I'm going to put that out there. I think it is. We're taught all this in a blind school because it's something that blind people should know, I went to RNC a few years back. I did Braille at New College, Worcester too. But quite frankly, when I got to RNC, I felt like saying to those teachers, do you know what? You're wasting my time. I can't be bothered with this Braille. Why are you making me do it when I could be doing other things? You are completely and utterly wasting my time and boring the hell out of me.
Oh, wow.
Because I had to learn UEB, and I hate UEB. There was no reason for them to change it whatsoever. So that's my point. I apologise if I've been quite abrupt with it, but I wanted to get that out there.
Well, you're entitled to your view, and here on Double Tap, we welcome all views. Now, I don't think I said that.
You did.
I don't remember it. I've forgotten everything. I have forgotten everything, and if I did say it, I didn't mean it, and maybe I did. I don't know.
Never apologise, Molly, for having an opinion. That's absolutely fine. What is it with UEB? Look, I don't use Braille. But I know there is in some people, there is a hatred for UEB. I remember at the time of the transition when this was all coming through, people were, outraged by changing it. Why is that?
Well,
Steve?
it's ultimately because, I mean, I imagine most of it's down to muscle memory, right? You've learned a system, you've got it in your head.
Of course.
And all of a sudden, the whole well, not the whole thing, but there are elements of it that do
it
change.
Changes. Yeah.
And certain commands don't apply anymore.
We hate change.
Others do. And of course, I remember being in the Braille class a couple of years ago, and there was a lot of discussion because people were saying, oh, that's this particular command means this. Or Braille sign, I suppose I should say, means this. And then someone would say, well, actually, no, because in UEB it means this now. And they're like, what, really? So they had to almost relearn. And I can understand that. If you're used to reading in a certain way, I suppose the benefit of having a Braille display is you can switch. You can have your text in whatever format you wish. You can have standard English Braille, unified English Braille, whatever you prefer. But I agree, it's probably caused certain people a lot of annoyance that there has to be this change.
So Braille as a waste of time.
Well,
Stephen's got comments.
Thanks, Molly. I think that bus is well and truly on the way to hit me here. Look, I don't think it's a waste of time. I actually don't. And I think one thing I've said a lot on this show is that I feel that a lot of blind children and low vision children need to learn it. It is an important skill. Now, look, I also admit that there's a growing community of voices out there who are saying, look, the one thing children need to know is how to use a computer. They need to learn how to use a screen reader. And how much training goes into that? And I think that's a valid question as well. And I think you also have to then, once you have that conversation, decide for yourself, right, what is the best thing to do? A child is learning a lot. A blind child is going to be learning a lot of stuff. Do you just add in screen reading classes? Do you add in Braille classes? Yes. Everything to this poor child who has to suddenly learn all this stuff, plus all the other subjects they're learning, alongside, their sighted peers who are not learning those things. I mean, yes, they may be learning to read and write, but that's at a very early young age. Braille education continues through education, doesn't just stop in your sort of early primary years. So I don't know. I'm not saying I'm changing my view on it because I don't. I still believe that children who are low vision and children who are blind should learn Braille. But I think we also have to find a way of making sure those children are fully equipped. And there is an argument to be made that Braille for some children, and in the future, perhaps even in the next 10, 20 years, will Braille even be relevant? Will it be needed?
It's always going to be needed, I think. How prevalent it is up for debate. But I think, look, yes, you do have to factor in these extra lessons or whatever it is for children, because when else are they going to do it?
A hard taskmaster, Shaun Priest.
No, well, yeah, look, you're in school anyway. You've got no choice. I would say, all those hours I was stood in the corner of a playing field pretending to field in cricket or whatever it is, I didn't need that. Scrub it. I could have been learning Braille. I could have been learning whatever. When I went to RNC...
So future Paralympians, forget it.
Yes, to be honest, yes, these are core things they're going to need in further education, in employment.
Not if you want to be in sport.
You want access to information. You want to be able to use technology. You need to touch type, you need Braille, and you need to understand how to use technology. Those are core today, I'm afraid. They just are. When I went to RNC, they forced me to learn touch typing. I hated every single second of it, but it was the best skill I ever used. Now, if they had also said, you've got to learn Braille as well, that would have been a positive, a plus, a bonus. I wish they had. They didn't. They said, well, you're fine as you are at the minute, low vision. Even at RNC at that stage, that was the wrong decision. I should have been forced to do it because it would have been better for me.
So I think it depends on the field you're going into, right? If you're going into mathematics or science, I think absolutely you will need Braille. Although, again, I say that like I know that's the answer. But I actually, I almost don't know if it is. I kind of say it because I feel it sounds the right thing to say.
I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean.
And there are moments you think to yourself, well, actually, if I was to think about it, if I had a blind child who was going to school, starting their primary education, and I'm thinking, what's the best for that child? My first thought is they need to learn a screen reader.
Yeah,
now,
I agree.
I would argue, I could make the argument, I suppose, that might be more important. Let's say that the kid goes to school And, you know, he's trying to learn in Braille. He's trying to learn the Braille. He's trying to learn the screen reader. It's just getting all too much. And I have to make a choice, which one to continue with. The teacher says, right, you got to choose. We can't do this. It's just absolutely killing him. So we need to do one or the other. I'd probably pick the computer.
Yeah, I think that's too hypothetical. I don't think anyone's ever going to have to say, you need to choose either a screen reader or a Braille.
I think there has to be a point at some point where you get to a stage of saying, well, look, what is best here for the child's, not just education and getting through education with, you know, a sound mind, you know, not putting so much on the child. On top of that, what's best for coming out and getting into school? I mean, look, we've had this debate already around, you know, Google tablets in the classroom, Chromebooks in the classroom. It's like, yeah, but get real. I mean, as much as we all love a Chromebook, you know, that's a nice little fun toy, but it's not a real world toy. You don't go into an office and they're using Chromebooks.
Not holding back, are you?
But they don't.
Interesting conversation I saw on social media recently about someone who's been using Mac and VoiceOver for the longest time and was saying, you know, when I go to my next degree that I'm doing or finish off my master's, should I switch over to Windows? Because in the employment, you know, in employment, Windows is the thing. Yeah. I mean, you may be able to do everything on Mac, but Windows is the thing. Sometimes you need to learn something just because it gives you the best chance. And, you know, as
and look, they all give you,
people, we need as much chance.
They give you a foundational understanding of computing, right? So, I mean, you know, most people who can figure out how to use a Mac or a Chromebook will be able to take that and transfer that to using a PC. It's not going to be alien entirely.
Yeah.
But again, when you add the blindness to it as well, I don't. Is that the case with kids? I don't know so much about kids. Us, yes. I mean, you know, look, I jump between Mac and Windows, Windows all the time, and I think, yeah, this is all great and wonderful, but you know, it is a struggle, you know, because as soon as you get to the Windows side, I think, oh, this is really nice, I enjoy this, but then I forget half the things that I've learned on it, and I just scuttle back to my Mac again because I think, okay, I've remembered more on this than I've remembered on that, so I'll just use that instead. Not necessarily the best tool for the job sometimes, but it's just the one that I can kind of use and remember. If I'm a kid, I'm far more malleable. Is that the right word? I have no idea.
No, yeah, it's probably true.
Excellent.
Yes. Anyway, yeah, it's an interesting conversation. Thank you, Molly.
Okay, let's have a quick one from Rebecca.
Using Orbit Reader with Amazon Kindle. A Perkins-style keyboard would still be a better option if you want to read books on the Amazon Kindle without getting distracted by your phone. Of course, enabling Do Not Disturb is another option. I'm sure listeners will ask about listening to Audible books from the Orbit player. If you have watched presentations from Humanware, you probably already know the challenges they faced implementing support for Audible. Although I'm not sure about UK pricing, I do know that you can buy a 6-inch Amazon Kindle for around $109, a much cheaper option that will play Audible content. Braille support is available as well. I might just give the Kindle another try.
It's funny you say that. It's funny you say that, Rebecca, because we kind of forget, certainly I do sometimes, forget about the humble Kindle. Well, maybe not the Kindle, certainly the Fire tablet. The Kindle is beset with its own issues, if I'm honest. I mean, I remember the whole thing about trying to get Voice View working on it, and you had to have sighted help, basically, because you had to go into the Bluetooth menu, had to connect a pair of headphones, and then Voice View would work. But only when you went through those steps. So you needed sighted help to be able to turn it on.
Ridiculous. Okay.
I know. I mean, just ridiculous. Not even a way of just plugging in a pair of headphones for it to activate. That would have been easier, right? You just plug in a pair of USB-C headphones or something and away it would go. Doesn't work that way. You've got to connect it via Bluetooth and then magically Voice View will start.
Hang on, though.
I don't know.
Have you tried it recently?
Well, I know that's how it works.
Really?
That's what the manual says.
Every other Amazon device, you hold two fingers on like you do with some Android phones.
Well, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
On the screen,
that's
and say keep holding to enable Voice View. Or
yeah, if you're using a tablet, then you're fine. You'd be better off using one of the tablets, but I don't know. I haven't tried one for a long time. I know they were never the great, but again, it's cost, right? I mean, if you're looking for a low cost way, I mean, if the only purpose for it was to listen to Audible books, it's worth the money.
If it's accessible, yeah. I must admit, I haven't tried a Kindle.
The Fire tablet is.
Okay.
What are you talking about? Of course it is. You can connect a keyboard to it. You can, and I don't know if
How
you're
many
talking.
Fire tablets have you had, Stephen Scott?
Well, look, I don't use them, but I think their point
No,
is,
you don't.
But the point is that it is a cheaper option, and if you're looking for those specific tasks, it's funny. I'm actually starting to talk to more people now who are kind of going back to those days of like, well, I've got this for that, and I've got this for that.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the way to look at it. You know, instead of spending hundreds and hundreds of pounds or dollars on a thing that, you know, like the Orbit Player, is it going to get Audible books? If I'm honest, I highly doubt it. I highly doubt you're going to get Audible books on there. It's absolutely right. Rebecca says, you know, the challenges HumanWare had to get their devices recognized. I imagine that door will be firmly shut after that.
Well, that's a mistake on Amazon's part.
Of course it is.
Sorry, it just is. They need to make that platform.
So
more
the solution is let's buy an Amazon product and
I just worry.
way.
Look, I'm as much into the more affordable hardware than anyone else, but I've got to say
exactly.
the amount of Fire tablets that I've got, which you can do everything on there. The actual use, the experience of using it is awful. It has been so far. It's just not responsive enough. So maybe that will change. Maybe there's better options out there.
Right, let's get the tablets out and we'll start having a look again. Let's
They're
have a look.
awful. No. I tried one recently. I mean, it wasn't a great
Okay, well, I'm winding you up because we're out of time. So bye, and stop. Go grump away about something else.
Okay,
Go and fall over a plant pot or something, and I will catch you tomorrow.
Relax. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.